On the 21st of January, Ukrainian President Zelenskyy delivered a speech at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, addressing how European nations should respond to current global crisis, focusing particularly on Ukraine and regions recently thrust into the spotlight due to acts of aggression. In his roughly 23-minute address, Zelenskyy directly criticized European countries for lacking political will, describing the current situation as a Groundhog Day, a cycle of stagnation and recurring tragedy that never improves. Stripping away the complexities of international politics, Zelenskyy's message holds valuable lessons at the personal level as well. Zelenskyy illustrated Europe's passivity by citing several examples. First, Belarus. Many European nations, he said, looked on with indifference during the 2020-2021 Belarusian protests. This allowed Russia to expand its influence in the region and install missiles there, now capable of targeting European capitals. Second, Iran. Late last year, nationwide protests swept Iran against its theocratic rule. During that time, Zelenskyy noted, Europe was preoccupied with Christmas and New Year's celebration. Third, Greenland. When the US President Donald Trump declared his willingness to seize Greenland to secure its resources and control over the Arctic, European powers responded by sending mere 14 or perhaps 40 soldiers for defense. Zelenskyy signed and urged Europeans to consider what message such actions send. How do the world's aggressors perceive this? How do allies interpret such weakness, especially Denmark, which currently holds sovereignty over Greenland? Then why can Europe remain so complacent in the face of these developments? Zelenskyy didn't deeply analyze the reasons, but he repeatedly stressed that European leaders possess only words, not deeds. With every episode of inaction, problems accumulate until aggressors exploit the disorder and conflicts erupt. Zelenskyy regards this as Europe's Groundhog Day. He spoke only briefly of Ukraine's own suffering, but when placed alongside these examples, listeners could plainly grasp how this wartime president feels the attitude of the Western powers. Except for those in extreme circumstances, ordinary people seldom encounter powerful, self-serving figures like Putin or Khamenei. Yet if we examine ourselves closely, we find plenty of personal problems waiting to be solved, and solving them requires what Zelenskyy calls action and will. When we fail to act, problems accumulate. The more they snowball, the less we want to face them. Inaction is not merely a lack of so-called execution ability, initiative, or grit, any popular terms you like. It often stems from an unwillingness to pay a price. Some admire those who act decisively, lamenting, "I'm not as determined as others," using the excuse of lacking resolve to justify inaction. But probe deeper, and one often finds tangible or unseen constraints, attachments, fears, obligations that hinder them from acting. People tend to think decisiveness is innate, but the absence of will is rarely random. It often stems from an unwillingness to give things up. Conversely, what appears to be resolved might simply be the courage to renounce certain comforts. The difference between the determined and the indecisive often lies not in talent, but in what they dare sacrifice. For some, privilege is ambivalent. It can be a blessing and a curse. Their family shields them from every hardship. Their path in life is planned by the previous generation. If a son fails to enter one university, another is arranged. Before graduation, connections ensure him a place at a large corporation. His resume meets every metric of success. His record gleams on paper, but he lacks individuality. Upon entering the workforce, he dreams of breaking free from his parents' control, but he simply can't. He fears his father's authoritarian scolding and his mother's incessant nagging. Above all, he fears defiance itself, the risk of angering them, of facing danger alone, of confronting his own weaknesses. Remaining obedient gives him tangible security. Striking out independently requires facing the unknown. He might gain, he might lose, but he must let go of some existing benefits. At 40, drifting and unfulfilled, he feels like slipping beyond his control. Now, to tell his stern father he wants a career change would be like provoking a beast. Having never rebelled in youth, he becomes restless in middle age, like a wild beast born in a zoo, seeing the reflection of his fangs and claws in the pond, but not knowing how to use them. Having never argued with his father, he now fears the cost of rebellion in middle age. One confrontation would be too steep a price. The refusal to pay a price carries its own cost. Problems pile up quietly until one day they loom too large to face. Multiply such cases 100-fold, and you get a mirror of the Europe Zelenskyy describes. From this analysis, action and will are inseparable. Will is the root of action. Action is the realization of will. Weak will slows action. Delayed action allows problems to fester, further draining willpower. The harm doesn't stop with oneself, it spreads to others, often without the perpetrator realizing it. European nations' reluctance to increase defense budgets is an example. They fear higher spending might divert public resources, trigger unpopular policies, drag down approval ratings, and endanger future re-election prospects. Some, reliant on Russian energy, are even more unwilling to confront the Kremlin. Yet Ukraine suffers most from their timidity. Ordinary people face similar patterns. In some workplaces in Hong Kong, employees work while sick for fear of upsetting their supervisors. This normalizes a culture where companies expect workers to stay functional until they collapse, literally selling their health and lives for the firm. Commitment levels become a criterion for evaluation. Others, however, insist on setting boundaries, adhering to the terms of their contracts, refusing unreasonable demands. They leave the office on time, decline tasks beyond their scope, and so on. Netizens have dubbed this stance workplace ratification. The term sounds overly dramatic, and whether the workplace is truly rectified remains to be seen. But at least these employees act to assert reasonable limits and maintain a proper employer-employee relationship. At the end of this speech, Zelenskyy reiterated his appeal to Europe. Act now, end the endless Groundhog Day. Perhaps that is not just Europe's challenge, but everyone's own calling, one that each of us must answer for ourselves. If you have any idea or like this video, please comment, like, subscribe and share. I'll be grateful if you support me on Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon, making us go even further. See you on the next video.